Good afternoon and welcome to everybody. I think I might just give people a couple more seconds to properly connect in. I know there's often a bit of a lag with these things. Okay, well, hopefully that lag has washed through the system and everybody's internet connections are well. Good afternoon and welcome to, I think this is our 5th in the Sustainable Australia Fund series of webinars. Today we're talking about, the topic is a greener bottom line, the sustainable impacts of environmental upgrade finance on Australian businesses. There is a link that's being posted up on LinkedIn that is taking people to the wrong link. So hopefully don't click on that one and don't join that link. Please stay with us here if you're already here. That's obviously the right place to be. So we're here at the moment. So sorry, just a little bit of housekeeping there. All right, today joining me is Darren Minter from Minter Magic. Minter Magic is has been growing produce in the Sunraysia for nearly a century, which I think is a fantastic story in and of itself. One, a tale of resilience, no doubt, over a multi-generational property out there. Minter Magic knows the value of sustainability, as I think most businesses in farming would. You are at the coalface, so to speak, of climate and climate change, and sometimes that requires a lot of resilience and a lot of perseverance to optimise your business. But rather than me really introducing and butchering the introduction to Darren, I'll introduce myself first. My name's Scott Bosque. I'm CEO and Managing Director of Sustainable Australia Fund. We provide finance to businesses like Darren and Minter Magic to enable projects like the one and the case study we're going to be talking about today, to help businesses really drive profitability into their businesses and really help with I think the cost of living and rising inflation that is impacting businesses at the moment. So Darren, if I could just hand over to you, if you could do a much better job of introducing yourself than I have, that'd be brilliant.
All right. Yes, I'm a 4th generation farmer in Sunraysia. We originally from England, and we're farmers over there. We don't know how far back we go farming there, but quite a while. I've got a son home on the business. We used to grow a lot of asparagus. We've got big financial things going around the world. We've grown citrus since the 70s, almonds since the 1985. I planted them when I come home from school with my father. And I'm now on the Australian Almond Board and happily growing about 400 acres of almonds and 300 acres of citrus with my son.
Well, thank you for that. I think you've touched on a number of different points there that I think is really quite goes to the points where I was trying to say the resilience and the need for businesses to really react, particularly in agriculture. So thank you for that invitation. We'll jump into just a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to be obviously having a conversation. The format of this is a conversation between Darren and I, talking about the project and the opportunities. And then we'll be opening it up to questions from the audience who we can't see. So please, if you have questions that you want to ask either Darren or myself, or more general in nature, please type them into the chat. We will get them to be seen and we'll try and address them on the way through our conversation, but more fulsomely in questions and answers. We'll be opening it up to questions and answers around 1:05. And then hopefully there's good interaction between the audience. So if you do get a question, please pop it up there in the chat box and we'll endeavour to answer it on our way through. If not, it'll be in the question and answer time. So thanks, Darren, for your introduction there. Let's just talk a little bit more about your business to begin with. So you're a 4th generation farmer. You mentioned there that you started growing asparagus, but you've then pivoted your business out there. Do you want to just talk about some of the decisions that led to that?
Well, farming these days is getting a lot more complex with issues of the environment, water, political, geopolitics. And with being a farmer in the Mallee, where it's got severe temperatures and use water and etc., use a lot of energy, we've had to change the business. We evolved the business when I come home. We used to grow dried fruit, and you've got to keep moving forward and looking for new crops, and trends change in the environment. But we used to grow a lot of asparagus for 95 years. Virtually, Mexico produce a cheaper product than I can to sell on the marketplace. So that market's now gone. So we find almonds seem to fit our category or citrus.
And so you moved from the asparagus responding to those price signals and international competitive markets, and you moved into citrus, or was it straight into almonds?
Sorry, citrus. We've always had multiple crops on the farm. We've never had just one. So we've always grown citrus. Well, citrus and almonds and asparagus have been my staple since I've come home. We've done wine grapes and table grapes and a few other persimmons along the way. So we've always left 10% of our farm for experimental crops in horticulture. But at this stage, at my time of life, I think it's just time to settle down and get everything and try and make some money, because the asparagus downturn in the industry has affected our bank balance quite a bit, and we've had to redevelop. So now it's time to sit and move forward with what we already have in the ground.
Yeah, great. And so I guess we getting straight into the kind of questions about, so let's talk about the type of project that you did on that. Do you want to just talk about the project, and so we can set it up for context there for the audience?
So what I've done through sustainable funding is I've put in some solar panels, 800 kilowatts. Power bill for pumping water. All the water, anything grown in the Mallee has got to be irrigated, unless it's a wheat, or cereal. So we have to irrigate our crops. My power bill was getting up quite substantially, and also sustainability. So we've looked at the solar panels for one, to get power cost control. So at least I know how much it's going to cost me for my power, and it's set for the next 20 years now. And also that looking at the sustainability side of things for everyone's concerned about the environment, like farmers are, because we're the first to feel it and the first it hurts financially, and through crop losses and consumer changing their political aims. So, to me, it was just virtually to put solar panels in and to move on to other things like hydrogen and desalination plants for our groundwater table that pressure water table we have here.
Yeah, the pipeline of projects you have coming up sounds quite exciting, and your sustainability journey is coming from a long background and heading towards a bright future. The interesting piece of why you choose solar, I'm a Melburnian. I don't live up in the Mallee, and it's the interface between water and energy that sometimes is forgotten, right? As you said, you're a big energy consumer because you're pumping water. How much of the solar system addresses your power needs? Do you know?
Well, we've just put it in. It should be actually implemented or commissioned on this Friday. It all gets ticked off, so we haven't actually used it. But by the calculations, our systems were designed back in the 70s to irrigate at night time only. So there was sprinkler and all that sprinkler irrigation. So our system's big enough to actually water during the day, because then we've changed to drip irrigation. So we use the water that as we can. Drip irrigation is during the day while the plant is consuming the water in the daylight hours. So virtually the summertime we get 16 hours of daylight, and I only need about 12 hours to water my crop. So it works perfectly for my power needs.
So from a technological and a bit of a policy wonk here, you've actually done the perfect piece of energy efficiency and renewable energy. You move your energy consumption to the daylight hours. You've been hyper efficient in what you're doing in maximizing the use of water, and then you're putting into the third piece your solar to max your load to that. that's the perfect journey for optimizing and using energy, not just in types of businesses like yourself, but we deal with a lot of other customers like in commercial and industrial property, transport and logistics, food manufacturing, and other things like that, whose natural energy load is when people come to work. The sun comes up, oh, alarm clock goes off to work. Put solar onto it. What we're really seeing here is that solar, particularly funded through our form of finance spread out over a long period of time, which attaches to the land, really is a sensible decision. It's the cheapest form of energy. Businesses like yours, and even down here in Melbourne where the sun isn't as intense, to generate solar. And you were mentioning that you have a bit of a longer term plans here about your total sustainability journey. You mentioned water desalination. I know that's a massive issue for you up in that region, but you also touched upon hydrogen. Do you want to just talk to me a little bit about your future plans?
Future plans now, to everyone, I'm only learning this. So pie in the sky stuff, but this is what through the hydrogen hub in Mildura, I've been speaking to a couple of people there. The long-term advantage is I can make power. I need to move most of my power over the late spring, summer, and autumn periods, but not through the winter. And so for 6 months of the year, I don't need to use all the power I'm going to make. I only really need it for the summer period. So I'm going to have excess power. Put it back in the grid, or I can I've got the tile drains all under my ground that collect the water, the purchased water table that sits in the mallee. That's at about 2,000 ECs. We collect that into a dam. We bring that up to our solar panels with electrolysis. In winter it rains when we have a lot more drainage water. So with electrolysis, we can then create hydrogen. So the long-term plan is to make hydrogen. In my water, there's 60 parts per million nitrate, and of course H2O, so you've got oxygen. So my idea is to collect all those gases, hydrogen for burning or exchanging to power when at ED times, the nitrogen to go back in the water supply, and the oxygen to oxygenate the water. So the more oxygen you have in the water, the better anaerobic the soil is, so it makes the trees grow better. So we can use the whole thing to make the whole farm work better. Also, we found out we can go up to 50 parts per million, or 500 EC of water to make hydrogen. So we've got a lot of high water tables in our region where we can actually have got a plentiful supply of water to then make into hydrogen or water to put back into the power grid when the power grid is low, or I do need extra power for my farm from time to time. But also hydrogen, JCB have made tractor engines. So I can make 5 tractors at this stage, but I can then run my farm on hydrogen gas or my farm equipment. Toyota, I've heard of spending a lot of money on hydrogen gas still. They think that's the future, not necessarily batteries. So it's moving forward because hydrogen becomes my battery. Yeah. Batteries, I can build tanks, compress the hydrogen, and I can store the hydrogen to when we need to require it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating story. It's we funded a similar, well, not a hydrogen-based project, but we funded another project which is also one of my favourites across in Strathmerton with Booth Transport. They were suffering problems out there with water as well. Theirs was a trade waste problem, so they had to get rid of water legally, which they couldn't do on site. So they were trucking the water back to Melbourne to legally discharge of it. So we funded a project out there, which is a water treatment plant, like you were talking about, and that also included a desalination plant so that they can basically recycle the water and then sell the clean water back into the local irrigation channel, which then increases the availability of water for the wider region. But they also, very similar to your kind of plans, had multiple resources coming out of a waste product. Yours is not so much a waste product, but it's a bountiful opportunity of saline water. But they were, you can the energy that they use to desalinate. They then have the salt from evaporated, but we financed all the groundworks to enable that, and that goes off to industrial purposes. But then the most interesting piece of that was that they had 20 tons of worms, which were treating all the biomes in the water before it goes into the desal plant. So they also have worm casting and fertilizer that comes off into it. So these stories of multiple opportunities, obviously starts on a journey from, we have to be very careful with the resources we have. I think it's the fantastic ultimate sustainability story, and yours. I was aware that there's a lot of saline water up in your region, but I didn't realise it was actually a resource that could be used in such a way.
Well, it's actually bad for the environment. We put weirs in the river, which push the water tables up and pull the mallee trees out. So we have this perched water table, and then we can reuse that back on the farm as clean water.
So really, I mean, the solar project that you're doing today is kind of the first stepping stone into a brighter future and unlocking those kind of resources for you.
Yeah, water's a valuable resource in this country, and if we can turn the byproduct of water we can't use and bad for the environment into a good source and reuse that and the byproducts to make the salt and everything else through the Mallee salt system is another way. And I just found out another thing the other day when I was at the Armand meeting yesterday, that they actually make ammonia out of hydrogen. So I can actually make with the hydrogen make ammonia, so then I virtually don't have to buy any nitrogen. That would be a very big plus.
Well, yeah. Hopefully we can stay with you along that journey. So I'm just getting some messages here is that people, once you're in the LinkedIn link, just make sure you stay into it. Don't click away from it. I think there's some technical challenges going on there. Sorry, back to you, Darren. So let's talk about the solar project. It's 800 kilowatt system that you've installed. Where's that been installed on your farm?
At every pump site. So we've got a big shed, or we call it a big shed, beside at the end of our farm, where we've got 2 pumps and we use for drying almonds. So we've put 500 kilowatts on that shed. So there's 200 for one and 200 for the shed. So when we dry our almonds, we can do them, because we do them during the daytime as well. And we use another company called Australian Garlic. They hire my shed, so we can dry their garlic with solar panel, with the solar energy. And then every other pumping station around the farm, I have 5 different pumping stations, and they've all got solar panels to suit their needs.
Very good. And how did you come across our form of finance?
It was actually interesting. The solar solutions. Solar panel options. They come to my farm, put a proposal forward, and the proposal was with Sustainable Funding Australia. And the biggest part about Sustainable Funding Australia, your council has to agree to come, because it's part of your council rates. With this, it doesn't go on my debt asset ratio. And for farming, as I'm changing my plantings around and changing my business, the money's a bit tight. So not going onto my bottom line made a huge difference to my decision to make it. I've always wanted to do it, but to go borrow another $1 million or so to go and put on top of my already debt that's rather high didn't turn me on it much at all. But this system goes with the rates, and virtually if I sell the farm, the person who buys the farm goes on with the council to pay for it, and they consume the power at the same time. So it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, Solar Panel Options are a great partner of ours. They're actually going to be putting a video out about this project imminently, I believe, but we'll be promoting that one through this network of following this event here. And the interesting pieces you talked about there with our form of finance being attached to the land does have those, and hopefully it's attached to the land for you and your future generations, not other purchasers of the land, but being attached to the land and repaid through council rates, particularly in an environment where, as you alluded to, interest rates are rising, input costs are rising, capital is becoming scarce. this form of finance helps really operating businesses like yourself come across, manage cash flow. And, in a business, cash flow is king, but you've also alluded there, it creates an additional pool of capital for you to invest into the capital infrastructure you need to in the business because of the way it is structured and repaid through council rates. And so how did you find and that's quite interesting from an operating business like yourself, helps with cash flow because it can be spread out over a longer time, increases your borrowing capacity to continue to invest into the bottom line of productivity of business, but also for property people who are in the business of creating property and owning and leasing property. It's quite an interesting form of finance because it overcomes another form of split incentive between landlords and tenants. Because it attaches to the land, it's repaid through council rates. It forms part of the outgoings of a normal traditional lease, and that's attractive for tenants because ultimately it delivers the same outcomes what you're looking for, which is cash flow, and enables them to have their cake and eat it too, to reinvest into the growth of their business. While from a building owner's point of view, it's helping de-risk that asset for future-proofing it into the future. It has solar on the roof. It has the ability to reduce occupancy costs for tenants, and they get an improved building. So that's that win-win solution. So the two key benefits, or three key benefits of EUAs, is that it overcomes that split incentive between landlords and tenants, where it's really hard otherwise to fund a project. For operating businesses like yourself, it's all about cash flows. Spread it out over long term. It's low risk. You know what you're paying for. It's very transparent and very flexible. And then also in a capital constrained world, it is available capital where other capital may not be available to projects like this. So it's quite an interesting space. And please tell me about your experience, the good, bad, and the ugly. How's it been?
So the sustainable funding system, I actually didn't do it myself. I had one of my bank managers do a bit of work for me, and he put it all together and went through it all, and actually come up and said, how much power I burn, how much power I'm paying for, and the cost of the solar panels. It sort of, his comment was, together it's a no-brainer. It just, the calculations, the way it was put to us, it should work fine. Again, we haven't started yet, but I know it's going to work, so I'm not too stressed about it. So yeah,
think of the video; it all looks good.
Yeah, so just going through making sure you're actually doing sustainable energy for good, so for the environment. So we found that the system quite easy, and those boys putting the team together, put them in, is very quick, very efficient, and it was within 3 months we're going to have them going.
Well, it's an interesting story that you have your bank manager help apply for lending from another financier, but that's brilliant in and itself. We have to work proactively with other lenders in the space, but we find ourselves increasingly doing so, right? In a world where green finance is becoming more required. We're the only form of finance in the country which legally has to deliver that, and we work complementary with mortgage providers who increasingly have green mortgages, but what businesses need is the capital to make their business or building green to begin with, and then they qualify for the green mortgages. So that's a really good story right there of working proactively with other lenders to make sure that businesses are properly capitalised to capture the future. What we are, and it kind of goes into the other opportunities that we're seeing here, is that capital is becoming constrained. It's being driven by a number of different outcomes. From in the finance world, where in the EU you're seeing green taxonomy, you're seeing mandatory financial disclosures, and the requirements are now pushing through. When we were chatting the other day, I'm just going to segue a little bit. The your net zero and your sustainability goals, you were saying you're already responding to that through your supply chain?
Yeah, when you're talking to any of the EU markets, it's also into even the banks are looking at the green tick. In our peak body industries, we have sustainable managers in place trying to trying to educate farmers, and we're what to do and how to do it. It's a new field for us. We take ourselves as environmentalists anyway because we are farmers. We work with Mother Nature every day. Yeah. It's we know when it's too hot and too cold, and we've got to know what we can do about it. So we need to we understand global warming, but we have to adapt to it. I can't see it stopping. So what's that saying? We stop carbon now. It's going to take us 50 years before. So it's here. It is moving as farmers. We'll have to adapt quickly to it. So we've got to make sure we're going to finances to do that.
And so in supplying into the EU, you already have to provide all of this sustainability reporting.
Yes, it's coming through now. Yeah, but a lot of the fresh care and all that stuff, even the Australian supermarkets, we can see it moving into our protocols. The EU are already there. What you do with your manure bags, what you do with all your recycles, everything. So it's
yeah, and it's a key driver which we're seeing businesses, big and small, being affected by in Australia. The EU is somewhat ahead of us, and people can argue how far ahead. But in the EU, there's about next January 1, actually 2024, there's 150 banks in the EU that are going to have to report on their green asset ratio. And the green asset ratio, that will get reported in their financial statements. So just like your profit and loss statement, it gets reported in there. It's a percentage of total assets which qualify as green. And, investors can then judge those banks on a comparative basis about how relative green they are in the level of accounting standards within their financial statements. And that is driving particularly those 150 European banks to really lift that ratio up across all of their performance. And what that's doing is driving banks out of non-green assets and into green assets. And then that has flow-on effects for the supply chain in saying, all right, well, we need to report on all of this. Darren, can you please fill in this paperwork to make sure that you comply with our green standards so that we can then report that all the way up? And so the trickle down happens, and we're starting to see that come out into Australia in the middle of next year with mandatory financial disclosures, where supply chains, I don't know if you supply into Coles, Woolworths or Aldi or something like that, but their supply chains are going to have to actually have this as well. Are you seeing that locally?
It's coming. That's why the peak bodies all have sustainability officers. So it's moving in. If you, I'm trying to get Eurogap, I think it's called. You have to do your sustainable. SEDEX is another one that's also people as well. So it is moving into the system, and for me, it's a financial decision. I'm going to make my own power on the farm. And it makes the environmental tick for this farm as well, just a feel-good situation more as well, sort of thing. Show people that we're trying to do the right thing by the environment.
It's a win-win solution, right? I mean, and that's why I love what I do. Is every dollar I invest makes the world a better place, and customers benefit in two ways. One is they know that our loans are green loans in the sense that we operate under legislation that we can only fund projects that deliver positive environmental outcomes. It's the only form of finance in the country where we have legislation in multiple houses of multiple governments, state governments across the country, in New South Wales, Victoria and South Australia. And little scream out here to Queensland. They're about to legislate in the new year, but it's the only form of finance which legally has to go to environmental projects. And so the opportunity, I think, there is twofold. One is, by using our form of finance, helps businesses and property owners like yourself meet those zero net ambitions and reporting requirements, ultimately driven by the mandatory disclosure frameworks. But it also just goes straight to the basics of business. Cash is king. This helps you with your cash flow, because you're ultimately buying the cheapest source of energy you can, which is cheaper than what buying from the electricity grid. I haven't done the numbers on yours, but where you get cash flow savings, it means you're paying less for energy than you would be otherwise buying it from the grid. So, that I think that's a win-win solution, particularly looking forward, as supply chains are really going to need to, go down that path.
And without your way of the funding program, for me to without your way of doing it, I could not be doing this.
So and that's the third piece that I think, Venn diagrams, all the circles are aligning, right? Is availability of capital is becoming scarce at the moment, but businesses have those combined forces of net zero transition and customer demands, as well as the energy input costs. So I think, we're very positive about the opportunities here, and we love projects like this. Somebody's asked a question about the speak more to the new regulations on reporting the sustainability efforts. Just quickly on that one. In Australia, there's an effort underway at the moment and there's a consultation paper out by the Federal Treasury around mandatory financial disclosures. Fundamentally, the plan is that in Australia, the largest companies will have to report on their financial impact, and that will include entities like, the banks, in your industry, Coles and Woolworths, who are doing a lot of fantastic work at the moment with their supply chains anyway. But people like the banks, that will require them to look through what's called their Scope 3 emissions. From a bank's perspective, Scope 3 is not your direct emissions. Scope 3 is your emissions associated with your supply chain. And from a bank's perspective, that means all borrowers. So all borrowers are ultimately going to have to, some form of data is going to have to come up. And then the plan in Australia is to roll this out over time, so that smaller and smaller businesses get scooped up into this anyway. But irrespective of that, because the big ones are going to be, the big businesses are going to be affected, the supply chain, which Darren, you're part of, and many other businesses are part of, are going to have to provide this kind of information. So it's something that is coming, but it just makes financial sense right now. This is the single biggest opportunity. Don't think of it as a threat. Think of this as an opportunity, because this helps you get a good business profitability.
Yes.
Sorry.
On that, my decision about this was a financial one, not a feel good or an environmental one. That actually, the environmental is great, which I love it, but it's actually a financial decision. I have cost control of my power, and that was what the financial decision was. And it still works out cheaper to do it this way than consuming power off the grid.
Yep, absolutely, and that's exactly why we agree with it as well. It's got to make financial sense and business sense to do it, and for all the reasons we've spoken to about additional capital, cash flow positive, that should be, and should always be, the profitable driver. The added bonus here is that this helps you meet your supply chain demands and others' ambition as well. So let's talk about the process for those out there who might be looking at things. There was a question in here about what kind of projects that can be financed under environmental upgrade finance. Clearly the project that you're doing right now, solar, batteries, renewable energy projects are going into it. Even everything that you talked about your future sustainability journey, that's absolutely the kind of stuff that we can be looking to finance. But but the rule of thumb here is anything that delivers a positive environmental benefit, anything that helps you adapt to climate change, and anything that builds resilience into your property, you know, regional, other parts of the state, and even your state might be susceptible to bushfire and flooding in other parts of the state. We've had some customers affected by that as well. So types of projects that can respond to that. That's across the agriculture and even, you know, regional property. But also everything from flammable cladding upgrades, where insulation is included, building envelope. So it is a really flexible form of finance applicable to a whole range of different projects for businesses, no matter what industry you're in. And so I think the opportunity here is really for businesses to come to it. One of the things that we've heard from, because we focus a lot on solar, and so we work with people like Solar Panel Options and your project. You were quite lucky. You had a bank manager helping you through the application process. Most of our customers, for any lending process, the application process is always the part where we aren't liked the most. So, you know, your experience, obviously you're happy here to talk to us, so it was a good experience.
Yeah, it was a good experience. Again, I didn't do the hard work behind it, but yeah, the environmental issue, you know, you had to prove the environmental side of it, which was really quite easy. Because, by the way, it was only a friendly bank manager that I took it to be a real bank manager, and he was said the same thing. Just way to go for it. But yeah.
Good. And there was a question here about the speed for it. Yours is a larger project, so there's a little bit more detail into it. Did you have any problems with the speed and timing?
Well, I was the one being the slow coach, making sure that, you know, one, the season wasn't going that well, so I was the one going, hang on a minute, I just want to make sure I've got enough money to do this, and eventually we worked out that we really don't need any more money because it pays for itself. I've got to do the first payment, then the next 3 monthly payment, the power should have made it back up what I was going to pay for the power. Yep. So the experience to me was good. It was rather quick. And Solar Solutions, as soon as I signed that dotted line, the stuff was already delivered before we were even signing it. I said I was going to go ahead, signed it, and the stuff turned up and was going in the next day. Yep. Very, very quick and very efficient.
We like borrowers like you. You actually consider your obligations, and that's fantastic. You know, we appreciate that there's plenty of things going on in your business, and getting information. We are probably sometimes not your top priority within operating a business. So we're here to help and try and make sure we can answer any questions going through. Just on that, you know, for smaller projects, we are in the process of launching, and we're going to be launching for our projects up to 200,000, you know, instant conditional pre-approvals, so that, you know, our channel partners for smaller projects, so, you know, sub 100 kilowatt kind of projects, they know that, you know, they can sit there, apply on the spot, they get a conditional pre-approval in place, knowing that they can do the project, and then they just have to do what you said, which is provide us the additional information to come into it. The other advantage that we have here is that we don't require any other forms of traditional security. So no directors or corporate guarantees, you know, so other forms of finance might require that. There's no mortgages out there. So this will give smaller projects the speed with which they need to go through this, the certainty to know that they do have finance in place, subject to them providing, you know, any other information we might require, and the ability to start saving sooner, right? You know, get your projects, as you said, you know, Solar Panel Options turned up the day after and started throwing, well, not hammers, but yeah, they got their cables and diggers out and started going into it.
The truck turned up that day.
Oh, did that? There you go. Well, that's a hyper efficient relationship we do have with Solar Panel Options. We've been working with them for a long time, and they understand the process and they understand what we're doing, and we, through relationships like that, we can give great experiences to people like yourself. And so I think we're just kind of getting to the pointy end of it where we're going to Q&A, and I haven't seen too many questions really coming through. So this really enables me to keep talking about stuff that we like, and hopefully people out there really find it. I'm interested in, you're involved in the Almond Growers Association in the region. You know, what are the kind of opportunities that we could be looking at to help the region really kind of capitalise?
Well, all the Mallee or down the Murray system, Darling system, is we all have pumps. So solar panel for pumps is number one through the whole district. We all also run packing sheds and plants to process our foods, to package them and send them off. So there's lots of room there for that power. And by the way, Mildura particularly is in the three-state grid pattern. So we've got power going to South Australia, New South Wales and Victoria, and they're upgrading the New South Wales line. So virtually we're ideally situated for solar and battery power supply back to the three states at the joint spot. So a little town of Redcliffe just down the road, close to me, is where they all meet. So virtually when you're talking about other sorts of power, such as hydrogen or whatever else, the biggest part for me is I've got the permission to put 790 kilowatts back into the system at any time. So if I do my hydrogen plant, which I will be doing the hydrogen plant, I can then put power back in and go on the wholesale market for power. So I'll have a secondary stream of income. So when it's 42 degrees in Melbourne and the power grid is struggling, we can then put power back into the grid at a higher price. The wholesale market I work with the pumps, it goes from 2 cents to $50 a kilowatt, depending on what's happening that time of the year. So we get a phone call, turn your pumps off, the power grid's stressed, so we turn it off. And that's where I could see my future is too, through the hydrogen, putting power back into the grid as a green source of energy.
It's an interesting relationship that you have there. You're a business in the business of produce, right? But you're also an energy trader in some respects. You're directly exposed to energy prices and energy markets, which is somewhat different to commercial real estate or others like that. That makes you hypersensitive to when you do see 2 cents to $50. There's a price rate change. There's a strong incentive to disconnect.
Yes, very much so.
And you're able to do that. You're able to manage your load and shift your load within that energy market kind of context. For some businesses that is challenging. We are seeing increasing opportunities for demand response where energy retailers are saying, do exactly that, turn off and we'll pay you to turn off kind of thing. But also there's opportunities and a lot of businesses and a lot of property owners are starting to look at batteries really as an opportunity for responding to that, but as well as energy security, right? Where, there's some alarms coming up that there might be, stresses on the energy grid this summer, right? So we had the last El Nino event a couple of years ago, right? And now it's all coming back and people are like, oh, okay, history repeats. We've got to be starting to think about that. So energy security is also something, because, businesses still need to produce and something that really needs to go through. Sorry.
Yeah, that's very important in the farmers or businesses in the Mallee where the power is plentiful when it's 42 degrees, can send power back into the grid. And again, with the hydrogen, or it's great to say batteries, but hydrogen is like petrol. You store it in a gas tank or LPG gas. So if you want to store, I can make it all winter and use it all summer. Or when the grid's short, we can put power back into the grid or something else with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of focus on hydrogen, and I think the economics of hydrogen into the future will, come down the cost curve. If you just think about the rule of, over time it will eventually make sense to more and more businesses, but where we're seeing applications is fringe of grid opportunities where energy prices are particularly high. And I think if you can switch to something that helps you in, as you're alluding to there as well, with transportation fuel costs as well. I think it competes well in that, but at the moment, in CBDs, I think using hydrogen on site is something that is in the future, but not something that makes economic sense, I think, for a lot of businesses. But the same kind of thing we're seeing with batteries, right? It doesn't really play out in every scenario that it's a good opportunity. One of the interesting spaces you talked about there is you run packing sheds. A lot of refrigeration you have in there.
Yes.
Yeah, and so 42 degrees when the sun's shining and you still got to refrigerate some, power is important, right? So the cost of power at that point in time may not be terribly high, but the security, the opportunity that is actually there when you need it, is that that's the cost benefit right there. New question, we had one. Who can I usually go to that will let me know about EUF as a finance option? So we work with a range of project developers. You can come direct to us. We can always talk directly to you about your project and how we might be able to fund it. There's various qualifications, and because the project itself may or may not qualify, we can start to answer that. But we work with people like Solar Panel Options and other project developers, solar project developers. Talk to them, ask them about it. Even go and ask your local community, your council about it, and they can direct your questions directly to us. So there's multiple opportunities. First of all, come directly to us. We're hopefully a welcoming pack of people. We also then talk to your communities and talk to your solar installer and say, look, we've heard about this form of finance. Can you help us out doing that, because it really helps us with our cash flow? There's another question in here. Can farmers apply for funding more than once over a few years as improvements are required? Yes is the answer. So we have multiple forms of finance. This is I'm inferring a bit into here. This is not grant funding. This is funding on commercial basis. It just happens to be enabled by a local council. So, hopefully Darren and we'll talk to you about your future plans as well, about opportunities. But there's, up until the amount of finance is limited by the underwriting of that loan. Is, can the business afford to fundamentally repay this, and does it meet our investment criteria? So yes, you can multiple do that. We do that all the time. We do find that customers, that once they have the experience of working with it, then start to ask the kind of questions that you ask, which is, oh, can you do this? Can you do this? And suddenly my sales team walk out of a building going, oh, $50,000 projects turned into 300,000. So there's lots of opportunities like that. Okay, well, is there any other question? I'll just have a quick check. We're heading into the last 10 minutes of the conversation, Darren. Is there anything that you particularly really want to, share that we haven't touched on today, or any other questions?
Well, just if there are any other farmers out there thinking about it, just remember that, we can all do, once you have power, you can do a lot more things in our own businesses. On the farmer, whether it's processing or cleaning water up, reusing water, as we keep talking about hydrogen, because when you burn or put it through the exchanger, you put hydrogen gas in one end, power comes out the other end, and then water comes out the middle. So you end up with pure water back again, made from the atmosphere. So there's, when you burn, you're making power at the same time. So there's a lot of opportunities out there, I believe, for the green funding, the sustainable funding, to make farmers profitable for the next 20 years. Yeah.
Look, and my comment to that is the sustainability journey can be quite overwhelming, right? Let's not have the perfect be the enemy of the good. Let's start somewhere, and that's why we work with Solar Panel Options and a whole range of other solar installers, because for a growing amount of businesses, solar, whether you're a landlord or a tenant, makes commercial sense. if you're paying more than 12 cents per kilowatt hour, you're choosing to spend more money than you need to. The cheapest form of energy you should be buying, depending on the business, we can provide a finance solar solution for about 7 to 8 cents per kilowatt hour. So if you're a business out there listening to this, go and look at your electricity bill, and if your tariff is 7 or 8 cents or higher, then come and talk to us, because we can help you with solar. And that's the first step, right? And remembering that 7 or 8 cents is only half the cost you're actually bearing. So the benefit you actually get is more like 16 cents, because you're avoiding energy consumption and network costs depending on your tariffs. So, come and talk to us. Start that journey, and then, don't try and, solve all the problems today. Get the cash flow, set the journey out, understand what your opportunities are. There's a lot of knowledgeable people out there that are solar installers and technology providers, and I'm sure businesses are out there talking to you. It can be quite overwhelming, but find the projects. Solar is a good one to start with. Get going with it, and start your sustainability journey today. Look, Darren, it has been a real pleasure talking to you. Thank you for giving up some of your day for this. I really enjoy talking to businesses and people like yourself who take a pragmatic and sensible approach to running a good business, right? You've been there for 4 generations. You're going to be there for another 10, 15, 20, hopefully. And if you continue to manage a business the way in which you're doing it, I think you're setting yourselves up for future success. And look, we always love, as I said, working with yourself and others. So happy to help you on that journey and provide you the kind of capital you need to really succeed. So look, thank you for that.
No problem. It's going to be enjoying watching the trees get irrigated by solar power instead of paying the big power bills to the power companies.
Well, look, the asparagus farmer come almond grower come energy trader extraordinaire that is Darren Minter. Look, thank you very much for your time. And thank you all to the audience here. We're going to finish up this a little bit earlier, and hopefully you can go and do what you need to be doing very soon. We are going to be following this up with an email just providing you a link to this conversation so people can come back and ask further questions. Please feel free to reach out to Sustainable Australia Fund, myself, or anybody at the team. We're here to help unlock a wide variety of opportunities for everything we've discussed today. We will also be sending around the video which Solar Panel Options is putting the final touches to about this project that we've been talking about today. We'll make sure that we communicate that and put that up through our social channels so that that story and the details of the story and the project itself can be visually seen there. It's quite a good little video to point in that right direction. So thank you again for your time, and thank you all for attending that. And until the next one, which I think will be in 2024, I hope everybody has a safe, I hate to say this, but we're getting close to December now, so we're talking about Christmas already. So hopefully you have a productive growing season and packing season, everything else that you're doing out there as well, Darren. Have a safe one. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.